Hey, what's going on, my Evolve St. Louis County fam? So, as y'all know, I'm Kelly, and I'm here to give you the lowdown and rundown of what happened in St. Louis County government this week because my job is to attend the meeting so you don't have to. And yes, I attended not one but two meetings this week. Um, with St. Louis County government. And I'm going to get right into it. So, the first meeting was the Committee of the Whole meeting. And essentially, this committee is literally the entire St. Louis County Council. And they really do a deeper dive on other issues, legislation, things of that nature. So, this allows more time for them to really discuss things. Whereas, in the actual county council meeting, it's not as much time available to kind of hash out some particulars. So, the Committee of the Whole, they met Tuesday afternoon, I believe it was, and they really discussed two items. So, the first item was around the St. Louis County Rental Assistance Program. So, essentially, if the County Council approves, they will receive about $30 million of this funding, again, to really support folks with housing services during this time. People, it's been a real financial crisis for folks because of COVID-19. So, really supporting people so they don't get evicted. Something important to note, I thought was interesting. So, the state of Missouri received $407 million. Okay. And so, of that $407 million, St. Louis County will receive $30 million. Again, it is just interesting to note because St. Louis County has over, I think they said like maybe 16% ish, 16% ish of the total population of Missouri is St. Louis County, yet St. Louis County received less than 10% of this funding. So I digress. I'm sorry. So essentially, with the program, there is some criteria that households would have to meet in order to qualify for this support. There are income requirements. Folks have to demonstrate homelessness or housing instability. And one or more folks in the household, could also have been qualified for unemployment benefits or experience a decrease in income or some other type of financial hardship, directly or indirectly, due to the pandemic. Eligible households may receive up to 12 months of assistance plus an additional 3 months if the county determines the extra months are needed to ensure housing stability and also if funds are available. So landlords can apply for this funding on behalf of the tenant, but if the landlord doesn't, the tenant can apply it for themselves. And priority will be given to those who are unemployed at the time that they apply for this funding, and also households that are in danger of being evicted. So if the county approves the acceptance and allocation of this funding, the rollout of the program will start in March. So, yes. The second thing that was discussed during this, the Committee of the Whole jam was COVID-19 vaccination plan. So I'm not gonna, this has been all over the news, all over the internets. So I'm not gonna rehash a lot of that, but I did want to highlight a couple of things that Spring Schmidt, the health department director, said. So number one, although the health department has the capacity to administer about 5,000 vaccinations per week, there's no guarantee that the supply will be available. And the second thing she mentioned was the health department has received no coin, not nana dime, from the state of Missouri to build out this infrastructure for vaccinations. So just wanted to let y'all know that. So the second meeting I attended was the St. Louis County Council meeting. Something I want to mention was that there was a request made to produce legislation that would reduce the budget of the health department by $89,000. And I'm like, I know you like thinking, Kelly, the health department, they're in the midst of dealing with this pandemic and the vaccination rollout. Why are they trying to take money away from the health department? And $89,000 for what? So, not sure if y'all have heard, but Rochelle Walton Gray, was recently hired and will be working, I believe, through the health department to support the county's response to the pandemic, focusing on the vaccine rollout. And her salary will be $89,000, not including, benefits and stuff. So that's that. There are also bills introduced regarding the retaining of outside legal counsel for representation, of this lawsuit. And this counsel would represent council members Days, Harder, Fitch, as well as Webb. Yeah. There's a little back and forth about this legislation. I know there's another bill that was also introduced that would, I guess, put limits on the legal counsel that these council members could obtain. Honestly, y'all, I just really didn't understand all that. But essentially, Bill number 40, which was basically introduced by Days, Harder, and Fitch, it was moved, it was perfected, so expedited a little bit. However, it failed to get all the votes needed to vote for its final passage. So yeah, moving along, there were bills, quite a few bills that were passed at the county council meeting. So again, I'm not going to talk about them all, but I will highlight a few that I thought were interesting to note. So first, the county council approved $45 million in taxable industrial bonds to support the Boeing expansion, which I believe I talked about this in a previous, in case you missed it, episode. So that was finally passed. There was also approval and acceptance of grant funds. Roughly, we're looking at, I think, 3 different grants that I'm going to highlight. So the first, about $10 million from the Department of Housing and Urban Development to support various Department of Human Services programs. The second, roughly $100,000 in grant funds to support the multi-jurisdictional drug task force. And then the third, roughly $30 million from, again, the emergency rental assistance grant. So they did pass that again, and that was what I had discussed and what they discussed during the committee of the whole meeting earlier that day. And the last bill that was passed, I'm going to highlight, there was approval of contracts to support psychiatric services operated through the health department. So the last thing I do want to mention, there was a resolution that was introduced by Councilwoman Clancy, ultimately expressing the use of spy planes and how, like, no, that ish won't be tolerated in St. Louis County. So I know y'all like, what spy planes? What are y'all talking about? So really quickly, there was legislation on the way of being passed in the city of St. Louis that would allow aerial surveillance over the city, so literally planes flying over the city for the purpose of helping to solve crime. So yeah, the bill was perfected. However, I don't know. We'll see how it goes with passage and everything, because the funder who was going to actually support the program, spend the coin on the program, dropped out. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. But if this legislation was passed and this program was implemented, there's the possibility of these spy planes, that's what people are calling it, these spy planes. There's a possibility of the spy planes extending to the county. And so the resolution calls on the city to ensure the planes don't cross the city-county boundary. So this resolution was passed. There was only one no from Councilman Fitch. And I guess his whole thing about it was I guess he didn't see a point in passing this legislation, because in his mind, the bill's kind of dead since, again, the funder dropped out to provide funding for the program. So yeah, y'all, that's all I have for you this week. Please stay tuned. I'll be here again at the same time, same place. But until then, stay well, be safe, and take care.